But what a mess President Trump has created.
Canada has escalated the trade war with a move no one saw coming.
That we will be introducing a new law in the coming days to respond to this historic challenge, allowing the province to apply fees to commercial trucks that transit through British Columbia.
With bold measures like tolls on American trucks and energy surcharges, Canada is hitting back hard at Trump's unpredictable trade policies. This latest standoff is leaving Alaska stranded and Trump scrambling for answers.
It will include such countermeasures as allowing the province to apply fees to commercial trucks that transit through British Columbia on their way to Alaska.
British Columbia Premier David Eby's plan to introduce tolls on commercial trucks heading from the lower 48 states to Alaska. This isn't just any toll. It's a calculated strike in a rapidly intensifying economic battle. Trucks carrying vital goods for Alaskan industries and households will now face extra costs for simply passing through Canadian territory. This could be catastrophic for Alaska, a state already heavily reliant on limited supply chains.
It'll be one tool among a number of tools that enables us to respond to escalations from the American side.
Eby's announcement came during a tense speech at the Legislative Assembly in Victoria. He didn't hold back, directly citing President Donald Trump's erratic tariff threats as the trigger for this bold move. Trump's repeated flip-flopping, first threatening tariffs, then backtracking, has left Canada with little choice but to respond decisively. Eby called it unprecedented legislation, signaling that this is only the beginning of Canada's countermeasures.
If passed, it will provide legislative authority to remove internal trading barriers that stop us from trading with our partners and friends from coast to coast to coast.
The tolls will hit Alaska, where it hurts most. Although most goods bound for the state are shipped by sea, high-value and time-sensitive items like fresh produce and critical oil industry supplies are trucked up from the lower 48. But with these new tolls, fast delivery costs are about to skyrocket. That's not just a headache for truckers. It's a direct hit to Alaskan businesses and families who rely on affordable access to essential goods.
Just yesterday, ministers announced an agreement to ensure that liquor products from BC wineries, distilleries, and breweries can ship freely to consumers across Canada.
Eby, however, appears undeterred. In fact, his plans go even further. Alongside the tolls, he's directed provincial liquor stores to stop selling alcohol from Republican-led states, including Alaska. He's also pushed for a boycott of American-made products where possible. And not just this. The joint efforts are making sure that liquor and all breweries can ship freely to consumers across Canada.
My message for the Prime Minister, for my colleagues across the country, and it's one I'm sure they want to deliver to me too, is stand strong. We are not going to accept these continual threats, this continued uncertainty. We're going to stand up for Canadians.
And let me tell you one thing. All this fiasco is about leverage. British Columbia targets a vulnerable yet strategically significant part of the U.S. by targeting Alaska. Alaska depends heavily on Canadian highways for overland shipping, and while most cargo arrives by sea, those highways are lifelines for time-critical deliveries. Cutting off or making that route more expensive creates immediate economic pressure on the U.S. And let's not forget, this is all happening while Alaska's tourism industry braces for potential fallout from Canadian cruise ship restrictions. Every piece of this puzzle adds to the mounting challenges for the state.
Just a modification short term because I didn't want to hurt the American. It would have hurt the American car companies if I did.
Trump, on the other hand, has been noticeably quiet about Canada's countermeasures. After threatening a 25% tariff on Canadian goods twice and delaying its implementation yet again, his indecision is glaring. He didn't anticipate the sheer scale and coordination of Canada's response. This isn't just about one province going rogue. It's about a country standing united against what they see as economic aggression from their closest ally.
Every year, the LCBO sells nearly $1 billion worth of U.S. wine, beer, cider.
The Yukon Territory, though small and far from the bustling centers of Canada, has stepped up in a big way to join the country's pushback against the United States. On Tuesday, Premier Ranj Pillai announced that government liquor stores in Yukon will stop buying American alcohol.
Lots of Yukoners have talked to us about it, but we're also taking into consideration, like, what are the repercussions?
Some of the proposals coming from Yukon residents are even more creative. One idea gaining support is to ban athletes from Alaska from participating in the Arctic Winter Games, a major regional event set to take place in Whitehorse next winter. Another bold suggestion: ban Donald Trump Jr. from entering Yukon. Known for his hunting trips in the region, Trump Jr. has become an easy target for Yukoners wanting to send a personal message to his father's administration.
Breaking news out of Queen's Park, where Doug Ford has announced he will begin charging 25% more for electricity shipped to 1.5 million Americans on Monday.
Ontario, Canada's economic powerhouse, has taken a bold and highly strategic step in the trade standoff.
But as of Monday, this Monday, we're putting a tariff, 25% tariff on the electricity to the 1.5 million homes and businesses.
Premier Doug Ford announced that the province will impose a 25% surcharge on electricity exports to the United States. This move is particularly significant because Ontario is a key energy supplier to several U.S. states, especially in the Northeast. By targeting electricity, Ford has chosen a sector that the U.S. cannot afford to ignore. The numbers paint a stark picture. According to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, over 35 terawatt-hours of electricity were imported from Canada into the U.S. in 2023, with Ontario accounting for a substantial share. States like New York and Michigan are heavily reliant on this power to meet their energy demands. By introducing a hefty surcharge, Ontario is effectively forcing these states to either absorb significant cost increases or scramble for alternative energy sources. This process is neither quick nor inexpensive.
At the end of the day, I think we have more leverage than any other nation, but we got to be smart, and we don't have all the leverage.
Ontario's strategy also capitalizes on timing. The U.S. energy grid is strained by transitioning to renewable energy and decommissioning aging power plants. In this context, losing access to affordable Canadian electricity is potentially catastrophic. The move underscores the genius of targeting a resource as essential as power, ensuring that the U.S. feels the sting of Canada's retaliation in a tangible, immediate way.
Almost every industry in Kentucky has come to me and said it will hurt our industry and push up prices of homes, cars, and so I'm going to continue to argue against tariffs.
Nowhere in the United States is the impact of Canada's retaliatory measures more evident than in Alaska. As the northernmost state, Alaska is uniquely vulnerable due to its geographic isolation and reliance on Canadian territory for overland supply routes. British Columbia's proposed tolls on commercial trucks traveling from the lower 48 to Alaska strike directly at this vulnerability.
But what a mess President Trump has created.
But the most looming threat to Alaska is the potential impact on its tourism industry. Nearly 1.9 million cruise passengers visit the state each year, with the vast majority of these ships stopping in British Columbia en route. Should Canada impose restrictions on Alaska-bound cruises, the state's tourism-dependent businesses could face devastating losses. Alaska, once seen as a remote outpost largely unaffected by international politics, now finds itself at the epicenter of a rapidly escalating economic battle. As the state grapples with the fallout, the broader implications for U.S.-Canada relations grow ever more severe.
I've been having conversations and working with Donald for over 8 years now, and a lot of it is rolling with.
And let's not forget how Canadians rallied around Trudeau's efforts. Across the political spectrum, from diehard liberals to grumpy conservatives, there was one unifying sentiment: Canada wouldn't be bullied. The public support for these measures was overwhelming. Nothing brings Canadians together like a shared irritation with their southern neighbors. Trudeau played his cards right, and in doing so, made Trump's bluster look like an amateur act. Here's where things get messy for Trump. While he's known for his loud, aggressive rhetoric, his inability to predict or handle Canada's coordinated response is glaringly obvious. The economic fallout on U.S. industries has been brutal.
And we're finding more and more markets for Canadian products and BC products by diversifying our trading relationships overseas.
And here's the kicker. Canada's alliances are stronger than ever. Trudeau's collaboration with the EU and other trade partners has not only cushioned the blow of Trump's tariffs, but also elevated Canada's reputation on the world stage. Meanwhile, Trump's America First policies are starting to look more like America Alone policies. The long-term implications are unsettling. U.S.-Canada relations, already strained, could deteriorate further. Alaska, caught in the crossfire, faces the possibility of economic isolation. Supply chains are disrupted, transportation costs are skyrocketing, and the tourism industry is teetering on the edge of disaster. Like this video and subscribe to the channel to find out if Canada will hold back and wait for Trump's next move.